Okay, so we did our 0 to 60 times, and our car didn't look so good against that other one. And I know that changing the spark plugs will somehow make all the difference. And yeah, no, we figured it's time to at least do a little bit of ignition work. And our trusty auto parts store didn't have a wire set for a 460. So we're just gonna do what we can, which is plugs, cap, rotor, not much else. Should be a proud career moment for me. I did manage to figure out how to open the hood finally. And you know, changing spark plugs can make excellent video, so we'll get started. Whoop. Okay, Roman, I tried to sabotage your 0 to 60 earlier by, or I should say Craig's 0 to 60 by holding my hands out of the moonroof. Didn't work, and so now I'm gonna try and make it up to you, man. So we'll do spark plugs, because now that we got the engine nice and hot on our 90-degree day, this will feel good. We'd like to do ignition wires, like I was saying earlier, especially because just the act of my moving them could break down the carbon inside, and we could change the plugs and cap and rotor and have it run worse than ever. But I'm assured that we'll get spark plug wires and you know, hopefully save things that way. Plus I have a certain professional or not professional enough curiosity as to what these plugs are going to look like after only, what is it, 20,000 miles? Yeah, you know, we'll see. Some guys say, you know, oh, you can read the plugs and see if it's too rich and too lean or whatever. I'm not much of a subscriber to that. I think with modern fuel, they seem to look good almost no matter what, unless you've got an oily burning soot bomb. I would look at this plug and I'd say, it's okay, it's a little black. I think it's gapped a lot wider than I would gap them. But I don't know what the spec is for this, and it doesn't take long to feel the heat. Okay, so here's our Bosch Supers, which I guess our friendly auto parts guy said gap at 55 thousandths, which the plug I'm pulling out of here, that looks every bit of a 55 thousandths gap on that one. This one, I'm not trying to show off by eyeballing these. I forgot to bring a spark plug gapper, but I do it by eye a lot. Trust me, micrometer eyes. It's one of the apps on my glasses. Looks like these Bosch Supers are coming out of the box. Yeah, it looks like 35 thousandths, maybe 40 thousandths. I'm tempted to leave it. And, you know, everybody likes to, you know, wide gap means more spark, vroom vroom. In reality, if it sparks enough to light the gas, that's pretty good. And if you have a really wide gap and anything else in the ignition system is weak, the spark will find another path or not go at all. I know that on a lot of English cars, you know, the rotors are so frail that I'll actually gap the plugs down just to stress the rest of the ignition system less. In any event, so you guys that work on Lincolns all the time can make fun of me for my logic or not, but I'm going to leave these gapped as they are rather than tweaking them. Also, I think in the act of just moving our ignition wires, if they're the old carbon core type, we could take a good ignition and kill it, and I don't have a spare wire set because our auto parts store, as I was saying, was, you know, not till tomorrow. So I'm going to leave these gapped where they are. Part of it is maybe a little bit for my own learning curve, but you know, it's plenty to light the gas. The reason you can't you know, gap them too wide is that under the pressure of combustion, if a weak ignition won't make that leap, whereas a smaller gap, you're more guaranteed of doing it. So we'll see. You know, I tighten them until I hear the porcelain break and then back off a little and blame somebody else. That's my strategy. You know, not very. They typically, well, these don't. The plugs I'm used to have a little crush washer, and if you snug that up, you're good enough. You know, it's not like they rattle out or pop out or anything. You know, it's a cast iron head, strong steel plugs. I mean, you're not going to screw it up too bad on a car like this, but if you've got some exotic aluminum thing, you sure want to be more careful. And I always try, again, especially on a more exotic aluminum head or something where you can't see what's going on, if you can't run the threads in by hand all the way, back out and address things until you can. Don't just figure, oh well, if it's tight going in, they'll stay nice. You'd really rather not ruin the threads. Not a problem on this car. They're all staring you right in the face, and no big deal. I should probably be torquing lug nuts to some specific factory spec, right? And I don't. I just, what I call common sense them. And if you've been doing it for 20 some years, your common sense on a torque spec is probably pretty accurate. But it's embarrassing when you're asked by somebody, you know, what do you torque these wheels to? Until they're tight, you know. Now this one's firing completely different. This one's way hotter. Or, you know, way, I don't know, hotter, cleaner, whatever you want to say. That first one that we looked at was a little bit oily. This one's really just like, almost like it's been burning a little hot, which is great. I mean, you know, I would suspect it's really more of oil consumption on the other ones and not so much on that. Again, I think when people are reading plugs, I think it's to look smart. I don't think it's just me. You know, I've heard a lot of guys go, that car smells rich. It's like, well, no, you're just smelling the hydrocarbons. You're smelling the unburned fuel. So I know this makes me, you know, also perhaps look like a great idiot. It's, you know, it's kind of easy to lose track your spark plug order if you just go yanking them all off at once. So I'm kind of one at a time. Of course, I'm the guy that writes notes to myself under the hood of my car so that I won't forget what I did, you know. But yeah, if you're, you know, for those of you that are going to try this at home, I suspect most people are well beyond this, but yeah, don't get the ignition wires out of order, because on some cars, even just finding number one can be kind of a pain or difficult. So yeah, only undo what you have to one at a time. We'll do that when we replace the wire set too, and try and keep it, you know, keep it easy or keep it less confusing. Yeah, so that's spark plugs done. Hardly a career challenge, so that's cool. And we'll throw a cap and rotor on it and try not to lose sight of where the plug wires go on that end. And my guess is that it will run no differently at all, but we can say we did it. We threw new tune-up parts at it. We're good owners. And then we will get a wire set when we can. So. Okay, so Tommy, you were asking about, you know, this wire coming from the coil. You know, I apologize if this is rudimentary stuff, but you know, here's our distributor cap, here's our ignition rotor, and the job of the distributor, two things: it tells the coil when to fire a spark, and it tells the spark where to go and at what time to go there. So there's a triggering mechanism, which of course on the old clunker cars I'm used to working on, it's, you know, points and a condenser. These days there's all kinds of cool electronic ignition upgrades, and actually we use those all the time. This car, I assume, has an electronic ignition and no points and condenser. Yep, sure enough, looks like a little magnetic pickup in there. But every time, in this case, I believe every time a little magnet passes, you know, wipes by a pickup module, it sends a signal for the coil to fire a spark, a high voltage spark. The coil stores the spark, you know, it's you know, when the circuit is closed, closed. High school shop class. You know, it builds up a charge, and then as soon as it's released, it you know, sends the high voltage, the stuff that you can actually feel and shock you as opposed to the regular 12 volts in the car. And it sends it through this wire that goes right into the middle post on the distributor cap, where there is a little carbon brush that allows the spark to travel along the length of the rotor. And the rotor, as it's turning, as you can see, it goes by a little brass cap corresponding to each of the wires. And as it's turning, bam, spark, 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 right? So it's just going to turn in an order and send sparks out of each one of these in order. And of course the wires are going to go to the right cylinder that's got the valves closed, piston roughly at top dead center. You know, just a quick and dirty rotor cap, and that's the job of those. What I'm hoping we can do is that there's enough flexibility, or, you know, length in these wires that I can just orient this cap the way it's going to land on the distributor itself, pluck the wires off one at a time and keep them in the right order, you know, because I'm too mentally lazy to actually figure it out in any other way. So we'll take an attempt at that and see if it goes as cool as I'm hoping. Okay, so firing order, you know, we were talking about that a little bit, you know, and maintaining it. Firing order obviously isn't just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, although there's a GMV6 where it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The first time I read that, I almost quit and went to law school. But usually it's some kooky number. I don't know what the firing order is on a V8. I don't have it memorized. They're not all the same. But I believe that Fords, like most cars, will actually number the cylinders starting at the frontmost of the car and working their way back. So, you know, one bank of cylinders is a little bit forward because the connecting rods share a journal on the crankshaft, which means they can't be exactly in line. The right-hand side cylinder bank, and therefore pistons, are forward a little bit. So on this engine, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, they are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4 down the right bank, 5, 6, 7, 8 down the left bank. The actual firing order for when the valves are closed and you're supposed to light the spark is obviously determined by the order of the wires in the distributor cap and the direction of the rotor rotation. And I could figure it out, but really, as long as we know that it's running all 8 now, if we just keep track of what's here and put it back together the same, we will not have altered that. And we're not actually moving the distributor, so we won't be affecting the timing. This really is monkey work if you're paying attention to what you're doing at all. And, and hopefully I can look as smart as a monkey. We'll see. So have you noticed in the course of our little stint, we've kind of lost our light? That's because I'm so fast at this. We'll put the air cleaner on. You know, as I was saying, keeping track of the order of the wires. It seems like it'd be easy, and yet I cheated on a couple because they were getting tangled up. And now I'm hoping that I actually put them back right. Otherwise, we're gonna have to do something desperate like look at the firing order, you know, go to the manual or something like that. And as a career mechanic, nothing could be more shameful than turning to the manual for something like simple ignition work. But we'll just fire it up and see if it runs good. By the way, if you hold your tongue just right, things come out better, you know. Somehow that helps. It's like Captain Kirk doing the drop and roll. It helps. Fire at will! This could be really embarrassing. Or it could be great. We'll see. You know, this sounds good to me, but I'm used to 4 cylinders. I think we're good.
And wherever we add detail in, and there isn't much, we try and make it as exquisite as possible. So we have this lovely chrome ingot around the fender extraction vent here with the Jaguar name stamped into it, giving the impression that this was really cast from a solid piece of aluminium. And it's a graphic device.